Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video, and it's time for another sort of long form discussion with a fellow Chelsea YouTuber. I know you guys like these videos, and definitely during the current lockdown it is worth talking about Chelsea in sort of an in-depth way and collabing with other Chelsea YouTubers who are creating content. I was going to get this YouTuber on literally, I think, way back when I restarted my channel. We tried to do a long form podcast, but unfortunately technical difficulties meant that I couldn't get it out. But now got him back on the channel. I've known him for so long. It's going to be a good discussion. Younes H-H, OG of Chelsea YouTube. Welcome to the channel, mate.
Thank you, Geetha. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while, but thank you for bringing me on. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think let's get sort of the current situation out of the way first before we get into sort of nicer things to talk about Chelsea, because when the last discussion I had on the channel, funny enough, speaking about OG, I got Louis on the channel and we were speaking about Chelsea, and of course even then, I mean, football had been cancelled by then or suspended by then, but so much changes day to day, and I made a video on my channel last week talking about the Premier League and whether it should be cancelled or not. What do you think should be the sort of conclusion of this? Because it seems to be day by day people are changing their opinions. I know some high executives apparently are changing their opinions that it should be made null and void. What's your take on the current situation with the Premier League and domestic football?
I mean, at first I was a bit optimistic and I thought, yeah, we'll have enough time. It'll be okay. Don't worry. We'll go into a small lockdown, and then after that, all this will calm down. And by the time it reaches May, June, we should be back playing football. That's looking impossible. So, yeah, I look at this now and I just think, you know what? The hassle that it's going to cause if we did resume it and try and cram all those games and all the logistics and everything that's involved in playing those matches, even if it's behind closed doors, in such a short space of time, when we don't know when that time's going to be. It could be late summer, it could be September, it could be October. Like, Premier League are talking like they're happy to do it any time, whenever it comes, it comes. But what about the next season? And then what about Euro 2021? And then, it has that knock-on effect. So we can't just ignore that. And that's why I think with the situation at the moment and the way it's looking, it means it's going to take ages. And, the lockdown restrictions are being spoken about to last 3 to 6 months. If that is the case, just cancel the season. Let's just end it.
Yeah, I think the issue is, and I made a video last week about this, and my argument was I think the season should be completed. But as people have pointed out and you've pointed out, I think it may just get to a point in terms of time-wise that there's just no other decision, like the knock-on effect it will have.
So I want it to be completed. Don't get me wrong. I'd love it to finish. But can it?
That's difficulty, isn't it? And what's your sort of concern about the legal battles? Because that's something that has come up with not only in terms of like Liverpool, but more, I think, relevant is promotion and relegation from the Premier League. Leeds, West Brom, those clubs fighting for promotion in the Championship, and also the likes of Norwich and Newcastle and Aston Villa and clubs like that could potentially be relegated, looking at the current spots and stuff like that. And do you have sympathy for that? And do you think that's going to be something that would limit and really would, if they did just cancel it, would cause further delays and further problems for the Premier League?
I mean, luckily enough, me and you don't have to make these decisions. Of course, that would be flipping mad. When you look at it, right, personally, I think it'd be harsh, despite saying that Liverpool should be crowned champions if it did come to it. I think we can all agree we'd find it hilarious if they weren't given the title, but they're so far ahead, it's ridiculous. With relegation, there was talk of possibly not allowing anyone to get relegated and just keeping everyone in. Looking at the Championship, like Leeds and West Brom, for example, they are the top two, aren't they?
I believe so at the moment, but not by a large margin. There's not like a massive gap between second and third, as you can expect in a Championship. And the playoffs as well.
Well, yeah. The second and third issue is another dilemma, because if we said, and rightfully so for me, like Leeds and West Brom, just promote them, and then we can have a 22 Premier League, we can have a 22 team Premier League next season. But then that third place in the Championship will go, hang on, we've done just as much work as West Brom, for example, or West Brom are second, aren't they?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so whoever are second, we've done enough work to be able to be recognised as on their level. And if they're just ahead by a little bit, why should that mean that we stay behind and they go forward? But then does it mean that we don't promote anybody? It's just, and if we're promoting, then why not relegate? There's so many questions, and it's so hard to answer in that context. It's very easy to turn around and say, give Liverpool the title, because they're so far ahead. There's no other recommendation, It's either they get it or they don't, and that's it. But relegation and Championship, it's just, it's too hard. It's too hard to call. I'm glad we don't have that decision, mate.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel so much sympathy for the decision makers at the top of the game, because it's such a unique situation. They're not just talking about football. This situation is going to be talked about in history. Like people, like future generations are gonna study about this properly, this period in history. And it sounds extreme when you're living it, but that's the truth. That's how incredible it is. I mean, before we started recording, I said that earlier today I was out walking, and how streets that are usually busy in central London have suddenly, it's like Avengers Endgame, like literally no one about. It's incredible, and it is going to be difficult. I just would say about the Premier League, if we look higher up in the league, you give Liverpool the title, but then what happens? So if the season then we start fresh, who plays Champions League football? Do we go by the current table that it is? And of course, being biased as a Chelsea fan, I'd say but it's Sheffield United, teams like that, Man United, who could all have arguments. Wolves, even Arsenal can say, we could have in those final 10 games got Champions League football. They have every right. Even Everton, Everton, even though we beat them, I think 11 points. 11 points, you never know. Like that, and that's the thing for me in my head I'm sort of conflicted about, because even in the case of Liverpool, there's no guarantee they're going to win those 10 games. That's why it's competitive football. That's why they have to play those games. Of course, we all know they are pretty much 99.9% there in terms of being Premier League champions. But for the integrity of the Premier League long term, there's always going to be that asterisk over the season. But we don't know, do we, what's going to happen?
Even Leicester, you got to feel for them, because if it came to it where we don't use the current standings because the season isn't finished and we go by last season's standings instead, then Leicester don't play Champions League football. And they've done everything, and deservedly so, to be where they are and playing Champions League next year. So for us, I don't think it's a problem, in all fairness, because we are in the top four. And if we went with last year's standings, we're still playing Champions League football. So I think with us, we're good. But your Leicester's, Sheffield United's, Wolves, it's too tough to call.
It's tough.
I think tough to call.
It's tough, as so much of football and being a supporter is being, about tribalism and thinking about your club. I mean, to be honest, in this situation, it's the one situation where rivalry for me has gone out the window completely.
Yeah.
I don't of course I don't want Liverpool to win the Premier League. Of course I want Chelsea to get Champions League football. But I was saying this in my video, I think as a fan, I want to see the conclusion of Frank Lampard's first season. I think that would be, it's something that I think we never know. And you don't know the sliding doors effect of the Premier League this season, of in years to come, would people look back if the season got cancelled and go, that could have happened. That team just before football got cancelled was flying or doing well or doing poorly, and then they were saved by this situation. I think the knock-on effect. But listen, there's no easy answer, and unfortunately, us two sitting here are not going to get those answers or not going to make those answers. So we're just going to have to wait and see, don't we? So let's focus on Chelsea and this season, because it was almost, I think, just over a year I came onto your channel, and this was, I believe, after the Everton defeat in 18-19, when Maurizio Sarri was manager. There was so much intense scrutiny on Sarri, his position, his future, but also the transfer ban had recently been announced, and there was concerns over the direction of Chelsea. Fans were fighting with each other.
Yeah.
As I say, over a year later, what's your take on where you sat last year in terms of the current state of Chelsea Football Club?
I think it's nice. There can always be improvements, and there's areas that we can always look at and go, we can do better. I think we can also put things into a bit of context. There are points that we've lost this season where it's like points we shouldn't have lost. But luckily, teams around us are worse and they ain't got a clue what they're doing. So it means we get a bit of breathing space. And I think when you put things into context, we have a situation that other teams don't, which is a new manager without much experience who is being given the time, both I think by the club and especially by the fans because of who he is, which is great. And I think we can all see the potential in him. Very, very smart man. And he's proven in some games this season why he should be taken seriously. At the same time, the other difference is we're incorporating all these youth players and, players from the academy and trying to build this setup for the long run. As well as that, we've seen that we are active in the window now. You're looking at the arrival of Ziyech. We're clearly going after Sancho. We'll always talk about Gabriel that, we might get to a bit after. It's clear that there are moves being made, which is nice to see. When you look at other teams like, Tottenham and Man United, Man United are looking a bit better, to be honest. But yeah, Spurs and the season Arsenal have had, we can count ourselves lucky, optimistic. And I think with the run of form that we've seen just before this madness happened, where we were playing players we all thought were not going to get a job done. We looked at lineups and went, we're going to get smashed. And we didn't. In fact, we've played some of the best football that we've seen this season. So that gives hope in the ability of the squad, let alone the first 11 that we haven't seen in a while because of injuries. And it's a shame that this has happened because I was looking forward to seeing players come back, maybe Frank not have to change the team so much with the likes of Pedro and Barkley and players that we just didn't think had it in them, but they clearly do. It would have been nice to see how that was all going to go. Now, players are going to come back and be fit or maybe unfit because everyone's at home on their sofas. But, I think overall we can be optimistic. Things have calmed down. When you look at last season, there was so much division, so much. It was crazy. And any good thing that Sarri had done, it was scrutinised. And when he'd done something, even things that we've seen Lampard do this season, Sarri got destroyed on another level for them when Lampard is getting away with them. And I can understand why, but at the same time, there should be equality. We shouldn't be looking at Lampard as a player because he's not a player anymore, he's a manager. And Sarri, at the end of the day, did finish off on a good note. So I feel better about the club at the moment compared to last season and the state of our team and where we're going. And I'm just looking forward to seeing the window, to seeing how the season's going to end, if it does end, and going into next season with a bit more experience, both for manager and players. So, yeah, I'm optimistic.
I think definitely, and I think the word unity definitely is appropriate to use about Chelsea this season, and something we couldn't use last season in sort of all facets of the club. There were player spats. There were mostly, when I think of it, is because it's very relevant to the stuff we do and very very much in our face. If you're on social media, was the division within fans. Now, some of those divisions I think will be long term, and I'm intrigued to see further down the line if when Lampard is no longer Chelsea manager and another manager comes in, if those sort of division and that toxicity rears its head again. The hope will be that Lampard's tenure changes a lot within Chelsea and the culture within Chelsea, that it improves that sort of culture and improves sort of the feeling between fans and the way we debate and feel about the club, hopefully, fingers crossed. But I completely agree with you, and I've expressed similar, that I think you have to put into context every setback and every frustration about this season, where we started off with in August, where we thought we were going to end up in August. Yeah. A lot of us probably thought at worst it could be 8th or 9th. At best, I was saying about 5th. I thought we were going to be in a battle with Arsenal and Man United and Tottenham to get top 4. And I think with the injuries as well is the thing that I think probably goes top of that list. I mean, the worst injury list I've seen it at Chelsea as a fan. And as you mentioned, the youth players, the inexperience, all of that. You spoke about transfers there. I mean, this transfer window looks like it's going to be absolutely huge for Chelsea, and we've got off on the right foot with signing Ziyech and bringing in that player. And there's been, of course, links to other players. What do you want from Chelsea in this transfer window whenever it does happen? What is sort of your goal personally as a fan as to see what they can do? What do you think are the key areas that need fixing for this summer?
It's difficult because we're clearly going after Sancho, and that's what everyone wants him, right? Many Chelsea fans, it'd be great to have Sancho because we know the circumstances of him growing up as a player, where he comes from, the bond he has with already some of our lads. Like he'd fit. The chemistry's there. It'd be a lot of money. So I'm curious to see, is it going to be a case of spending a lot on Sancho and that's it? You know, maybe pull in another player or so, but that would probably be it when we look at it logically. Or do we not do that and spend money, accordingly? So Gabriel looks like that's on the cards, and that would be a defender. Potentially going in for, if it's not Sancho, maybe Boga. Maybe going the market again for a striker, depending on Giroud's situation. We know Tammy's going to be staying. Are we going in for a left back? Because Emerson Alonso, I don't think is going to remain very long term. Alonso's changed the opinion of a lot of fans, and Emerson we haven't seen in a while. It's so who's going to go? Who's going to stay? There's a lot of question marks. The right back situation, we can't just rely on Reece James. Are we going to get a backup for him? Are we going to get someone to compete with him? Are we just going to keep Aspi and hope that he can still run? At the age that he's going to be reaching next season. There's many areas that we can focus on and probably strengthen. But what way are we going to go? We have to look at the fact of either buy Sancho and spend that money and probably have to let some players go to, balance things out. FFP is another thing. Or do we use that money to try and, fragment it up into segments and try and spend, across the pitch rather than one position? I don't know what we're going to do. I think we're going to go in for Sancho, and if it doesn't happen, then we'll take the option of spreading it out accordingly. But I think Sancho is going to be the main target this summer. So it'd be a big statement. I'd love it, but no one knows it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that I was really impressed with the swift nature of getting that Ziyech deal done. I think that was so impressive from Chelsea, and so impressive. And I think what just shows you is, out of all the rumours and reports we talk about, that's transfer and a lot of transfers that get done, how little we know about what actually goes on. The fact that literally within a couple of hours, Ziyech was about to become a Chelsea player, and then it just happened. And there were no reports during Jan. I can't remember. I was reporting on it and talking about it, and his name may have been linked briefly, but never to a substantial. Like all the players that were linked in January, his name was never up there. So it just shows you how probably serious Chelsea have been, and maybe we're turning the tide in terms of recruitment from that disastrous 2017 window. We're starting to improve and look forward. I do agree with you about Sancho and how much it would cost. I mean, when you actually look at the history of Chelsea, that in recent times, in terms of deals, our best moves have been cheaper release clause moves, like for N'Golo Kante, for Diego Costa, players like that, rather than the big money fees, like the highest fees we've paid really haven't worked out, have they? They've been shocking. I mean, I'd still say Kepa can turn out to be a brilliant player for Chelsea. I know there's big concerns over him, but not to the same level as Morata and Torres, of course.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's maybe.
Well, thankfully Torres repaid, but anyway,
Torres did repay, of course, in the new camp. But in terms of just looking at the long term thing, I think that would be a thing that maybe is weighing up in Chelsea's head, and looking at maybe some of the dealings that Liverpool have made in recent seasons of potentially going for the left field move and looking for a player that is maybe, whilst everyone's scrambling for Sancho, whether it's a Boga or whether it's a Leon Bailey or someone like that who you feel like is getting close or being ready to make that step up, so earlier you were talking about the wider picture in terms of the state of Chelsea Football Club, but talking specifically about the season, the highs and lows, the positives and negatives of Lampard and the players, what have been the things that have really stuck out in your mind in the season?
I mean, yeah, we can focus positive and negative, to be honest. I think if we start with, let's get rid of the negatives. Negatively, I think there's been some mistakes both by players and by manager. Some naivety, but I think that's normal. You know, you're looking at some young players and Frank as a new manager on the block. You know, and even so, I think at moments he's pulled off some really, really good results, you know, tactically. So I think that's where some flexibility comes in and some understanding. I think with our defensive structure, that's been one area where it's really let us down. I don't necessarily want to say attacking because we've done a lot of it. We've done a lot of being able to get the ball in the right areas. And just not converting chances. That's been another problem. But with the inexperience that we have, and you know, you can maybe let some players off. Defensively, though, we've looked horrendous up until the last few few games of the season before this pandemic kicked off. Defensively, we're all over the place, whether it be set piece defending, whether it be in free play, and we get our positioning wrong. We're letting strikers run round around the back. We're just allowing too much space. Defensively, just not enough structure. So going forward, I'm hoping by the time we come back to our football and we start playing again, that's going to be resolved. Hopefully, again, with maybe the signing Gabriel and trying to strengthen left back or right back or wherever we're going to be strengthening, that helps us. Positively, I think just the unity, as we've mentioned, the buzz, there's a clear direction of where we're trying to go, and that's good. You know, in the way that we play, the methodologies that we're trying to bring, the philosophy. These young players that have come from the youth team and know what Chelsea is all about and do care. Much like Lampard, who club legend, is automatically going to get respect from those players. So that's another positive where I think that's why we can overlook some of the mistakes that we see in the season and think long term and think where it can go. If it was an experienced manager making those mistakes and not being able to get players to play, you know, accordingly, or constantly not defending well, maybe then you can criticize a bit more because you expect that message to be driven through more. But with Lamps and some of these young players, it's a matter of time, I think. So in the heat of the moment, yes, we can, you know, yell and go mad and you know, criticize. As long as there's no insults, I think that's fair. But we still have to look at the overall picture once everyone's emotions calms down. When you look at it in the long run, going next season onwards, maybe with some potential signings, it could be really, really good. So I think, yeah, the positives do outweigh the negatives. I'm hoping those negatives, like being able to convert chances, being able to defend well, are areas where we drastically improve. And then next season, hopefully, with those additions that are going to be coming in, where it looks like the club are making those movements, and that's good to see because that's something that we've been screaming for how long? The board to just wake up, do something, and back the manager. It looks like we're doing that finally. So it's, you know, that's the biggest one for me. For me, that's the biggest one. I want to see the board back and the club back what Lampard wants. What, you know, fans clearly see what Lampard's trying to do, and for the club to back that. And don't even consider, you know, sacking or anything like that, at least at this stage. Maybe after a summer window, maybe after that, you know, it depends. You know, no one is perfect. If Lampard's still struggling after 1 or 2 years, yes, we have to consider his position, even if he's a legend. That's just logical and that's part of the job. But right now, yeah, I think it's a lot more positive than negative.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And just a few quick questions before we go to our sort of last topic is your favorite, your best player of the season, best performing player of the season, favorite win, and most disappointing result of the season. Those 3 quick fire questions.
Oh, okay. So, best player, I would have to give to Kovacic. Um, for the amount of time he's had, Billy Gilmore's been incredible. But Kovacic throughout the whole season, legend. What are the other two?
Best win and sort of worst result, in your opinion?
Best win. We've been so long without football. I need to go back and look. The Ajax win was mad. The Ajax, yeah, that was huge. Even the Lille win in the Champions League, that was big. We can even say Spurs, Arsenal. We won quite a few big games. The Ajax one, though, I didn't expect. That was the one where I just thought it's not happening. So I'm going to go with that. And what was the last one?
The worst result, in your opinion?
Result. What was the game where we got smashed?
Was it you thinking of Man United first day of the season?
No, not the 4-0. I could have swore there was a game where we let in 3 or 4. Not Bayern Munich.
I think you're thinking of maybe Ajax at home. Of course we conceded 4 there.
No, I was there for that. That was amazing. that was fantastic. I know we've lost little games. We've lost like West Ham. We lost Bournemouth. We've lost. Did we lose Everton?
Yeah, 3-1. I think maybe that's the one you're thinking of away from home.
I think it was Everton. I think at Goodison, 3-1, Duncan Ferguson. That was horrendous. That was really, really poor. So, yeah, I'll go with that. Just for the fact that, we've lost games where you can see what we've been trying to do. But that game was just shocking. We've done nothing. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That was a tough result to take. And also, I think the Man United games this season, all 3 of them, I could, you could sort of excuse, I think, the first game and maybe even the second one, because the second one was a League Cup game. And that game was quite weird in truth, because Rashford scores a penalty and scores a screamer. And to be honest, there wasn't much else in the game, to be honest. It was a bit of a weird cup game, to be honest. There wasn't a lot of chances. Yeah. The one in February, that was just hot. That was one of those heartbreaking games I've watched in a long time. And it's just so frustrating because even on the night, I think, and I've watched Chelsea play against Man United, they're weird games. Like, Man United don't really nullify us. Like, it's not like they're having some defensive masterclass. We look like we're playing better football than them. We look like we're more cohesive than them. But somehow it just has gone wrong, and it's just been they've been the curse this season, really. We've had the curse on us with Man United. We just haven't been able to get over the line. So I would say absolutely losing at Goodison Park, but Goodison Park is still a tough place to go, and it's been a tough place for Chelsea. I think Man United for me is the one this year that's just been so irritating.
That was really bad. And the manner that we lost that game in is the one manner that I hate. Where you have like majority of the ball and you do nothing with it. Yeah. But then your opponent gets the ball a few times and smashes 2 or 3 in the net.
Well, that's very much old Chelsea, isn't it?
And that's why, because that used to be us and we loved it. So when I see us just falling for that trap that we just really shouldn't be falling for, because we know it better than most. Maybe not the players that we have at the moment, but as a culture, as a DNA, and what we've done for so many years, we really should be reading that. And United, they weren't special that day. Let's be real. They weren't special that day. So, yeah, you're right. That's another one.
Let's hope next season we'll get them back. So sort of the final thing I want to talk to you about, and I'm sure as many people listening or watching this picked up on at the weekend, the club released a statement about Stamford Bridge, the redevelopment of it. Of course, it was put on hold a couple of years ago when Roman's visa got rejected and he couldn't get back into the UK. Of course, when this video goes up, I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to put this video up on a Tuesday, so it will lapse. I believe the planning will lapse on the 31st. So Tuesday. So, and the club are letting that happen. They're not, they're changing what's going on there. It was the shortest statement I've ever seen. I didn't really understand the point of releasing that statement because it was literally just like almost a text. I was like, what's going on here? And Matt Law wrote a really good piece about it and talking about the whole project itself. I think the big question is sort of to you, what is your take on this situation? Because it's a big thing looming over Chelsea, really, in the long term, isn't it? We don't know what's going to happen with the club, and it very much feels like for Chelsea to not only be self-sustainable, but to compete still at the top level, we need to either move stadium or redevelop Stamford Bridge. What's your take on this whole situation?
Um, I mean, there's many factors, and the current climate now with this madness going on just doesn't help. Not just Chelsea, but all businesses are hit by this pandemic. So, but this has happened quite recently. So, when you look in the long run and why we've been inactive, you've got to ask questions. You know, is it for the fact that we actually want to spend on the team, and therefore we're not willing to put as much money aside for this stadium to happen because we can't do both? The club are trying to be self-sustainable, so sometimes you've got to pick and choose. At the same time, there's a big question mark over Roman and his status. He's still not allowed back in the country. He's done a very good thing, which might help him by allowing the hotels at Stamford Bridge to be used by the NHS for free. So that's a really good gesture. But that hopefully can help the authorities maybe look at it and go, okay, maybe you're good. Maybe you're fine enough for us to be able to grant you a visa. But there's that. If he's fully invested in the club, is he fully invested in the long-term project of this team and this club? Is he going to spend that much only to sell? No one knows except him and his close entourage around him, maybe. So there's all those question marks that are up in the air. With the way that it's been handled, you can tell it's just been shelved, and the club have clearly waited for something to happen, and it hasn't. I think if we had better results, if we were competing on a higher level, I think maybe the club would consider putting more money to the stadium and probably launching the plan to go ahead and start development. Or redevelopment. But right now, letting it expire is, we're going to have to either run the risk now of possibly getting rejected and refused if we do go in for planning permission again. Does that mean we have to go and find an alternative site? Does that mean we can just redevelop Stamford Bridge and just add on, leave Stamford Bridge as it is and just add seats like Liverpool done with Anfield? Personally, that would probably be the best option, I reckon, if it's possible. I know logistics and we've spoken about this in the past, a few years ago, as to whether it's actually possible, whether we can actually extend. Where are we going to extend? Because there's train tracks behind the bridge. There's limited space. How can it be done? I guess structural engineers have to analyze that one. But yeah,
I do agree with you, and I think that it's there's a lot of things riding on this, sort of out of our control and out of football's control. Really, in truth, it's not really as much of an issue with what's going on the pitch with Chelsea. It's more to do with the country, politics, all of that shenanigans that have taken place in recent years that have obviously kept Roman away from the UK. I definitely think that this project itself, Roman will have an incredible legacy at Chelsea, of course, forever. But this feels like if he was to invest in this new stadium, I think personally for him a few years ago, maybe, we don't know what Roman's thinking, and I never want to sort of guess what he's thinking because none of us speak to him. He doesn't speak publicly. Yeah. But I think it's safe to assume that this would be the long-term legacy of Roman Abramovich at Chelsea if he was to put this stadium down and redevelop Stamford Bridge into this major cathedral and change Stamford Bridge, the home of Chelsea, once again to this new, glittering 60,000-seater stadium and turn Chelsea in a self-sustainable way. I think it's a really big question, but because the financial reports did come out a few months ago that he'd invested a lot. I think over something like 219 million in 2019. So it's not like he isn't investing, not like Chelsea aren't investing into the club in some way. Do you think Roman can still be or will still be invested into the club, or do you think we are getting closer to him potentially selling? It's a big question.
I think that possibility is always there. I think if someone turns around and says, no, he won't sell, you can't say that. Because at the end of the day, for him, yes, he might have a bond and a connection now, but it is still a business. And with the current climate, with the fact that, that I've read that he had lost like 2 point something billion recently, just in terms of losses personally for his assets and his equities and what he invests in. So that's a lot. At the end of the day, he's got to look at himself financially. So that possibility is always there. I don't think he wants to sell. I don't think it's a case of I'm looking to sell ASAP. No way. I don't think that's the case. But reality is, even if you were to spend on a new stadium, if you're not pulling in the results and you're not getting the money that you can do in terms of level, Champions League, winning titles, trophies, pulling in those big players, attracting those big names, and raising the overall value of the club isn't going to get higher, right? Even if we did manage to build a stadium, but how long is that going to take? There's a time frame as well. To completely rebuild Stamford Bridge, we need to be away from the bridge for 4 years?
I think that was it's not going to be like Tottenham. It's going to be much longer than that. It would be an extreme length of time.
So all of that plays, and in that time, are we going to be getting the results that we need? If we end up finishing mid-table and we finish with a 60,000 seater stadium and we're not actually doing anything on the pitch, then what's the point? Because you're meant to be getting your money elsewhere as well, not just through ticket sales and pulling in an extra 20,000 through the door every week. So there's all those factors. I think that the logical thing to do would be to spend and invest on the team, try and build something sustainable on the pitch, and then from that, much like we did, with the old spine that we had, that lasted for over 10 years, and we were constantly winning things, and it was so sustainable. Regardless of manager, we just kept winning things, and overall value of the club went up. I think it's a case of rebuilding that first before we start really investing in the stadium, unless if Roman can financially afford to. If he can afford to give money to the club and invest in signings and do all of that at the same time, build a stadium, then okay. But I don't think he's there financially. So yeah, I say invest on the team first before you invest on the club overall, if you know what I mean. Once we sort ourselves out on the pitch and we know where we're going, we can think about ourselves off the pitch, because at the end of the day, 42,000 is still 42,000. We've done it for a while. It's not the end of the world, especially in this current climate of what's going on. How long is this all going to go on for? This has just made things worse. So, what's going on now with the pandemic has just pretty much put an underline on everything and just gone, yeah, okay, we're definitely not doing it now. So, yeah, focus on the team, invest on that first, and then we can think about a stadium.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's going to be definitely the short term, investing in the team, backing Frank Lampard, trying to get Chelsea to the back to the top of the Premier League, hopefully competing with Liverpool, Manchester City, and hopefully then Europe. But this feels like a looming thing that's going to be in Chelsea's future, definitely. And whether it's whatever way it goes, I do think that Roman getting back into the UK, I think, would be the key sort of component in that. I think if he gets back in the UK, I think the chances of a stadium happening go up exponentially. I think if he doesn't, then this thing probably just stalls further. Something could happen there, but we're not sure. But thank you, Younes, so much for coming onto the channel, having a discussion during these troubled times. But we have had a good discussion, and I hope you guys enjoyed listening to it. Before you go, just want to give you the chance to shout out your channel and where people can find you online, because even through this lockdown, you're still creating content. I believe FIFA content and Chelsea career mode as well you're doing at the moment, as well as the usual Chelsea news and opinions that you give. So this is a chance to shout out your stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, thank you for letting me come on. It's been a pleasure. Love chatting with you and all the others as well. So it's always nice. So my channel, Younes H-H. At the moment, obviously with no football, it's a little bit touch and go with what to actually talk about and do, but still latest Chelsea news and football news. And I've just started this thing where I'm doing literally like half an hour, 45-minute chats each day of just what's going on, what's the latest, what is there to talk about, even non-football at the end of each video. So there's that. There's top fives coming out here and there during each week, relating to Chelsea, and FIFA content as well. I've been doing career mode. I'm looking possibly to moving that to Twitch or possibly streaming on YouTube. I'll make a decision soon and see what the best way to go is. But yeah, YouTube, Younes HH, Twitter, Younes HH, Instagram, same Younes HH 92, I believe. But Yeah, I'm active, and I think we all are. We're all at home and we're stuck. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Link will be in the description box below for Younes's channel, and I'm sure nearly all of you have subscribed to Younes anyway. But if you haven't and you're watching this, make sure you subscribe. But thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell to never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.